and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed, and we are reading Philosophical Midwifery, which is amazing and one of the best things, if not the best thing, you can do with your time as a human being who has consciousness, can access language, can share in the logos, and can reflect on the nature of self. Now, last time, we finally said the thing we were looking for, that problems are understandable and resolvable. The problems we have can be resolved. That was the thing we're looking for. That's what makes us happy, because we all have problems, and it's we were looking for, in the text, in black and white, the confirmation that yes, indeed, our problems can not only be understood, but resolved. Hooray for that. Also, we saw a lot of other things that were super interesting. Like, for example, that philosophical midwifery is a synoptic vision. There is a unified vision. It's a return to Plato, but with additional. It's not just a return. We're adding to Plato. We're improving the Platonic tradition. It is a new spiritual tradition that is better than, or to say it politely, as it was said in the text, can rival or is better than, or a replacement for any other spiritual tradition we happen to find around. And we have reflected on why that has to be the case. And another way of saying it is, any other spiritual tradition you're in, you better be doing philosophical midwifery as well. Specifically because it's the system for understanding and resolving our problems. So, that was awesome. We also left with the question, is this scientific or rational? Or both? Well, scientific or rational. What's the difference? Well, if it can be expressed mathematically, then it makes it scientific. So, can it be? I don't know. Does it matter? Probably not. But it's a question that was given at the end of the first chapter, so we might as well carry it, see where it goes. Maybe you as a listener can see more significance in that question. Is it scientific because the model can be expressed mathematically, or is it just rational in that it's understandable, following a system, a paradigm that can be employed to anybody and is verified in our direct experience? So, which one is it? We also talked about how there is a huge problem. One of the major problems, our predicament, not the predicament, one of the most perplexing problems about humanity itself is, how can we have so much development in all the other areas of different things, technologies and so forth, iPads and iPhones and laptops and Wi-Fi internet, but we still remain immature and irrational within ourselves? That's a big thing. Why do we have nuclear weapons, but we don't have, we seem to be completely stupid, immature in how we use nuclear weapons, how we relate to ourselves and other human beings and the planet? Why are we so stupidly childish and irrational? Doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that capitalism isn't sustainable. Wealth inequality harms 99.9% of every human being, just so the 0.1% can have extra wealth they will never need or use. That seems irrational, when everybody could be living freely. Why are we so irrational? War doesn't seem to solve problems. That seems irrational. Why don't we stop that? So that was one of the most perplexing problems we have, and we were offered a solution. We have We lacked a method to chart our way through the workings of the mind. A method to identify the forces that seem to hold man fast to ruinous cycles of behavior. And so a method to chart through the mind, to find the forces that hold us to this immaturity and irrationality, and a way to resolve the problems that lie at the basis. How do we resolve the problems that are causing such stupidity? We didn't have a method. So, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, puzzle we have about our species and how we relate to each other and everything else and ourselves is a solution. And the solution is this book we're reading. This is a model or method to chart our way through the mind to identify the forces that keep us tied to the forces that keep us enslaved to our ruinous cycles of behavior, acting irrationally and immaturely towards ourselves and our fellow human beings. And also, it's a way of resolving those things. So, huge problem that we have a solution for. Also, maybe tied to that, we have a problem that we will face personally as we go through this text. Specifically, there'll be a point at which we will reject understanding. There are many, in understanding the problem of humanity, we have not understood ourselves and the mind and understood the causes of our problem, understood what maintains our problem, and understood how to resolve it. The problem is we haven't been using understanding. So that also applies within ourselves. As we go through, we will face cultural beliefs that are prevalent and present in our world that say, understanding is inadequate. Or, I've been tricked by understanding, supposed understanding before. How do I know I'm not being tricked again? I've done psychotherapy and it was garbage. What makes this psychotherapy better? I've been tricked about the nature of reality from different religions or parents or teachers or cultures. What's going to make this not be a trick? So, or it's all a trick. Understanding is all a trick. Also, our problems are fundamental to our nature, so you can't understand and resolve them. We're just innately stupid, sinners, inadequate, flawed. You pick a word. That explains our problems without understanding them, and explains them in a negative way, which is curious. Also, if the self is beyond experience and somehow reaches beyond the usual way we use understanding, which is normally applied to things that can be expressed in experience, even if the experience is of ultimate reality or consciousness itself, ousia in philosophy, or nous, the knowledge of the realm of being. If the self is the cause of and therefore beyond even experience, and the regular way we use understanding, then how can you know you've reached a true understanding of the self? Therefore, you can't. So these are all ways of rejecting understanding that can surface as within us as we go as doubts. Now, what's interesting is what we're learning is a new way of understanding, different from the things that we've been tricked by, different from the ones that have these limitations and blocks that can resolve those very doubts. So what that big question about mankind, what was the problem? We have failed to understand. We didn't have a method and model for understanding our problems. And the other problem as a whole that also applies to ourselves it's not that understanding is flawed, it's our failure to use understanding that have caused our problems and mankind's problems. So, interesting conclusion, and kind of makes sense, especially given what we've read so far. And we also mentioned that we are moving into a new age of dialogue. The new age we are moving into is the age of the pirates, the pirate age. No, that's anime that I like to watch called One Piece. It's not the age of the pirates, it's the age of dialogue. That's what we're moving into. That's what we're learning. We're learning how do we do this dialogue thing. That would therefore be a rational and mature way of relating to ourselves, each other, and our problems. Okay, so a synoptic vision that will rival or surpass, is a better word, all other spiritual traditions that we see around us. That's also a return to Plato, but also an improvement upon Plato, because the same dialogue or dialectic that we apply to knowing the self, we're applying here to removing our problems about the self, things that limit our journey through understanding to the self, the doubts that understanding is adequate, the doubts that we can even know the self, all of these doubts that limit our progress and also cause the problems that we have, because at the root of them are false beliefs about the self. So a synoptic vision, a new paradigm, so often the book is called the Orange Sutra because of this, rivals everything else. Anything else you're doing requires this. It's essential. Even if you're doing Buddhism and you're like, I'm stuck in my ways, I'm not gonna change, I was born a Buddhist, I'll die a Buddhist. Well, you still need midwifery, because if a Buddhism has spiritual goals or enlightenment goals, then they're meaningful goals, meaning you're going to surface problems, meaning you need a method, a strategy to surface and remove them. This is what we're learning. So, essential for whatever you're doing, even spiritual goals. A way of understanding the doubts that come up for us, a way of understanding man's predicament as a whole, and a solution. So, one hell of an introduction. It's not understanding that has failed us, it's our failure to use it. So let's use it. That was chapter 1. And then we started chapter 2, which started with one of the awesomest sentences ever uttered. And because it's so awesome, I will utter it again. It is entirely possible to verify for oneself, not believing anybody else, even if they wear a funny hat. It is entirely possible to verify for oneself we are part of a caring and intelligible universe. That's awesome. And the next sentence adds to that. The verification is a kind of proof, since it is a way of understanding that's based upon the realization that our mind constantly communicates with us and for our benefit. That's pretty rad. Wow. The communications from the mind are as profound, so wise, all-knowing, as they are appropriate. So wise, but also laser beam focused, appropriate to our circumstances. But while the scope of the mind is pervasive, its precision is always directed to what is personally significant. So you better have some personally significant goals that your mind can communicate to you about, well, with reference to, about the problems that you have that are incompatible with the goal. You can't believe I am a rubbish public speaker and reach the personally significant goal of being what's meaningful for you? Manager at work, let's say, or a great musician who has to speak in public. A comedian, a stand-up. All right, you can't have them both. So, personally significant goals. We will demonstrate that our choice of goals, so which of those goals did you pick? And why wasn't it master the art of dialogue, master the art of midwifery and philosophy, dialectic? Why wasn't that your goal? Why did you pick those rubbish ones that I offered? Musician, comedian, manager, tui. Okay, so the choice of goals that we have, the problems we face, the daydreams or fantasies we have, and the dreams that we have even when we sleep, each and every one of them are like doorways to the richest source of insights into our life. We don't have to believe those dudes in the funny hats or with the expensive certificates on their wall. Why? We can have the insights ourselves. Wow. We can have the insights at all times. Imagine that. So the implications of that is, if our mind is profound and constantly communicating with us at all times in all of those ways, well, you can be in a constant state of insight. You could be getting insights like that constantly. In fact, the time it takes for me to click, you could even shorten that. Yes, thumbs down for clicking, thumbs up for even quicker than clicking. Where's my thumbs up? There we go. So, how does that relate to enlightenment, to be in a perpetual state of insights about our life and ourselves? So, what would that be? You'd be in a dialogue with your mind. We are moving into the age of dialogue because the mind is dialoguing with us. All-pervasive, profound intelligence, personally directed and appropriate to us. Caring and intelligible. So, all that we have to prove for ourselves. We have to verify for ourselves, and that will prove also a new way of understanding self and reality. Specifically, that it's understandable, knowable. Those two words together is the fancy word intelligible. Understandable, knowable, and caring. Beneficial. You got to prove it. You got to see it yourself. And because why? If there is a possibility of being in a constant state of insight with both of those intelligible things, insight in, direct experience and understanding together. So not just a intuitive insight, but also matched with understanding. If there is a possibility to be in a constant state of that kind of intelligible insight about what's most important and significant to you, why wouldn't you want it? It's our old saying, you never send your slave to the banquet. If there was such a brilliant thing that's happening down the street, you wouldn't send your slave to do that. You'd make your slave do the yard work while you can go to the banquet, because that's where the lovely things are happening. So that's why we need to prove it for ourselves with understanding. And that proof would be an understanding and realization of that state of perpetual insight. Everything can be a doorway to the richest sources of insights into our life. That's constantly being communicated to us. What we discover through these insights is that the mind itself provides ample evidence of its own goodness and intelligibility. So it's goodness. So where are we getting this proof and evidence and understanding from? Mind itself. So no need to subscribe to whatever podcast channel or subscribe to whatever new life coaching scam or pyramid scheme or religious denomination or Scientology cult, or because we talked about L. Ron Hubbard, haven't we? The author had met the guy, and we read a little bit about him before he even did his whole thing, Scientology thing. You don't have to do it. Why? There's no gatekeepers. You don't have to listen to L. Ron Hubbard or Tom Cruise or the rad pastor who lives at your Pentecostal church up the street or whatever. Yeah, you pick whatever is relevant to you watching this video. You don't have to believe anyone else is the point. Why? Because the mind itself provides the ample evidence of its own goodness and intelligibility. That's the last thing that we read last time. What a paragraph. I mean, holy crap. I mean, seriously. What a thing to say. It is entirely possible to verify for oneself. So already we are moving out of opinion, belief, prejudice, cultural pathologos into verifying through understanding and experience for yourself. And what are we verifying? That we are a part of a whole that is intelligible and caring, and it cares about you so significantly with the highest form of intelligence in all of the possible ways it can. The goals we choose, the problems we face, the daydreams we have, the fantasies we have, the dreams we have, all of them are gold that we can mine. Isn't that amazing? This mind that we are a part of, all pervasive and super precise. So that's where we were last time. Holy crap, what a paragraph to say. And as we read from our first paragraph, ain't being said by some chump. I mean, you could say just from the sentence, from the paragraph itself, how well written it was, the choice of words, how well structured that paragraph was, how personally significant it was. That paragraph itself shows how awesome it is that it's not being said by some dope. But we've just gone through a whole chapter of how non-dope like this guy is. Taught philosophy at the highest level. Studied with and was friends with the highest spiritual gurus on the planet. Surpassed them, was given the Dharma stick, the next pope of Buddhism and all that. Met other key figures like Joseph Campbell and L. Ron Hubbard, and I'm not sure if it was mentioned, but Albert Ellis also. He's the cognitive emotive behavioral therapy. If you do psychology at university at the time of recording, it's his stuff. So ran into all these key figures. Achieved these great things. So, good to know that this paragraph is said by someone so, I mean, what would you call him? Enlightened? Amazing? I mean, holy crap. What a story. I mean, what a guy. Anyway, that's not as significant as the content itself. Because we don't, even though, you know, we've got, it's great that he's the one saying it. We don't have to believe him because we understand for ourselves through mind. Doesn't matter what he says. It matters what we see and understand ourselves. Make it our own. In the new age of dialogue. So let's jump in and keep reading. Here is that paragraph. Look at it. Look at it. It is entirely possible to verify for oneself we are part of a caring and intelligible universe. The verification is a kind of proof, since it's a way of understanding that is based on the realization that our mind constantly communicates with us and for our benefit. The communications are as from the mind are as profound as are utterly appropriate to our circumstances, for the scope of the mind is pervasive, but its precision is always directed to what's personally significant. Memorize that. And then after you memorize that, memorize the next part. We will demonstrate that the choice of goals, the problems we face, the daydreams or fantasies we have, and the dreams that visit us in our sleep, each and every one of them are like doorways to the richest sources of insights into our life. What we discover through these insights is that the mind itself provides ample evidence of its own goodness and intelligibility. Memorize that half next. That's what we were reading here. That's your homework. I don't know, you don't have to. But worth doing. Let's keep going. The demonstration of these claims is essential. Also, what is essential is my highlighter. Just bring that up. There we go. The demonstration, we've got to demonstrate this. Demonstration of these claims is, oops, let's not use that same color. Go this one. The demonstration is essential. The grounds for verification must be clear, and the understanding that leads to the realization that the mind is, oh my goodness, so good. Okay, the grounds for verification must be clear. How do we verify it? We don't just believe it because it's awesome. It has to be true. And the understanding that leads to the realization that the mind is beneficent and intelligible. Now, I'm not as smart as the author, so I'm going to look up what beneficent means. Beneficent. Sounds like beneficial and magnificent. Magnificently beneficial. Generous and doing good, resulting in good. Doing or producing good. Right. So it does goodness. Oh, that's how we have to prove that it's both intelligible and good. Okay, there we go. That was the last. So this here, goodness and intelligibility. That's another way of saying beneficent and intelligible. Those would be the nouns, I guess. Okay. The understanding that leads to the realization has to be set out clearly. So we need the realization, but there is a kind of understanding that will lead us to it. That has to be set out clearly for it to be a method. It's no good saying, hey, by the way, do you know that you are a part of a consciousness, the mind, that's the universe, that is profound and all pervasive, but also is specifically talking to you at all times in a precise way to help you, opening a doorway for insights and understanding. Oh no, I didn't know that, Jim. Oh, well, it's the case. What? Well, how do I see this? How do I see this so I can see it for myself and benefit from it? I don't know. Pray. I don't know. Sit under a waterfall. I don't know. Bollocks. You have to set out the steps clearly for it to be a method. The very thing that we were lacking, which causes our problems within our species. Therefore, we will demonstrate that the problems we have, wow, okay, here we go. The problems we have, we should have. What? I don't like my problems. Why should I have them? I don't like that. Doesn't it mean that the world is unjust because I have problems? No, we're going to demonstrate that that's not the case. And their solutions are in our highest interest. So maybe that's why we should have them. You can't have an insight if you don't first have a puzzle. You can't come to an answer unless you first have a question. You can't learn anything unless you're first curious. So if you're watching this podcast, then you are such a person. Good for you. So the solutions are in our highest interest. And with the freedom from these problems, we also get freedom. We get freedom. The freedom from these problems, we can function on a higher and more personally significant level of existence. So there we have it. We should have a problem because there is some significance about coming to its solution. And that also affords us not just whatever insight we get, but a freedom that allows us to function on a higher level. Not just a higher level, but on a significant level. Not significant for your boss or your daddy or your whoever, authority figure, teacher, priest. Personally significant. You are doing what you are here to do. You're not a slave being conned. Cool. So this is what we're going to get. That's good to know that we are going to see that we should have our problems, so we can spit out that black pill, which is a meme that means you think that the world is terrible or you're a doomer. Spit it out because you need the problems you have, because the solution is in your interest, and you also gain a freedom that allow you to function on a higher level and a more personally significant level, and it's a kind of level of existence. Interesting. We level up. Okay. We will define the nature of man's problems. What? Okay. We'll define the nature of man's problems. Cool. In a new way. And describe what these problems are like. And why is that significant? He highlighted the word like. Now, if you're doing the philosophy streams along with this channel, you know likeness is key. Likeness is key for analogy. We're already using analogy, I believe. Let's bring up the board. We talked about analogy already? Surely we have. Yes. Analogy. Same and different. Likeness. It's analogy. We go from what we can see to what we can't see. That's how we think. That's how we learn. So literally in philosophy, we go from what we can see, the physical world, to what we can't see, its causes, the world of being, until we can see it. And then of course we go beyond that to the oneself. And what we're doing here, I guess, would be we look at what we can see, our problems, to equally so its causes that we can't see, which is why we have the problems. So that's likeness. That's the principle of likeness that we use for analogy. Terms vary, relations stay the same. As above, so below. So we can see that word. It's already highlighted. It's already in italics, but it's also one of the fundamental words of language and reality, or the self-er term. It's one of the self-er terms that's used in the first hypothesis of Parmenides about the oneself. So a little tidbit for those who are also doing the philosophy streams. We will trace their origins to things learned, things we learned, and discover why we believed and accepted them as true. So again, truth, another key word. We think that our beliefs that are the origins of our problems that we learnt, we think they're true. What do you know? So all of this work we've been doing and being puzzled and open-minded and having questions and being on a quest.
You're a wizard, Harry.
We better employ them because we think the things we believe are true. We don't recognize them as a belief. We just think it's obviously true. So we better be practicing being open-minded and curious and wondering and puzzled Otherwise, we will not learn what we are incorrectly taking to be true. So, now's the time, well, always is the time to employ that wonder and curiosity and that question-seeking practice, because we accept them as true. It's interesting. And if you think it's true, how can you be searching for it when you're looking for what's false? Unless you are practicing this open-minded curiosity thing. So, good thing that we're doing that. On this foundation, we will define a method for the solution of problems. Hooray. And we call that method philosophical midwifery. Now, so we've defined in the third paragraph of this chapter what midwifery is. What's philosophical midwifery? It's the method for solution of problems. Come on, where's my, there we go. And in doing so, in defining the method, we will gain insights into the functioning of the beneficial and intelligible. So not only are we going to learn this method for solving our problems, we're also going to be at the same time, in doing so, we will be gaining insights into the functioning of the beneficial and intelligible mind/universe we are a part of. How? How is this method that we use to solve problems going to give us insights into reality itself and its good and intelligible nature? What's this method we humans do got to do with reality and mind itself? The universe itself. Well, I mean, the model has to come from somewhere, has to come from the universe and reality. Does that mean reality is good because it gives us human problems along with a method to solve them? Doesn't leave us out in the lurch? Is that what makes it good and caring? Does the model somehow reflect the essence of reality itself? Does mind or reality or the universe itself also follow the same model? I don't know. But our author is promising us insights into the beneficial and intelligible nature of the universe at the same time as learning about the method to solve problems. Hooray. Okay. Now, those of you who have followed along with the series, I mean, we're getting some pretty kick-ass sentences thrown our way. He's really dropping wisdom bombs on our asses. So all of the work that you have been through, going through the first chapter, learning about the person who's writing the book, learning about the conditions for the creation of midwifery, learning about the significance of how it relates to our history as a human species, how it relates to all other spiritual traditions that are around us that we also have to recognize and understand relative to this model, or relative to the model. Learning about how this relates to a single vision, the age of dialogue, but also learning about the author and his life and stuff, and how this all came to be. All that work you've done and all of that is really paying off now, because already we're like half a page into this chapter, and already there's so many nuclear wisdom bombs being dropped on our asses. How cool are these sentences? So good for you who is watching now and has gone through all that to this point. And now hopefully, having gone through that first chapter, these wisdom bombs are going to have even more significance. Like you can relate it to the academic traditions, spiritual traditions, all those gurus, cultural traditions like Jung and Campbell, and it's like when there's an anime show, you hear, oh, they're releasing us this season. They're releasing, let's say, Naruto Shippuden, and it's the awesomest anime. But go back and watch the first season of just Naruto Basic, the first series. It's not as good, but all of the cool stuff that happens in the second series, Naruto Shippuden, is going to be even more awesome to you if you go through the original series first. You'll know the significance, you'll know the characters, you'll know the origin of these awesome characters in the world's most popular anime that everyone loves. You'll know how all of these problems came to be. So all the solutions will be even more significant. It's exactly like that. The first chapter is Naruto, and we are in Naruto Shippuden. Or I don't know, add your favorite Netflix series in there that has a kind of tedious first series, like One Piece. I mean, most animes kind of start slow like that. Anyway, good for us. We have identified and called, okay, we've got a name for the system, the method of solving problems that will also gain us insights into the beneficial, intelligible nature of the universe. That's called philosophical midwifery. We have identified and called Pathologos. What's Pathologos? The false beliefs that are the source of a certain class of our problems. Hooray! So we're finished. We realize that the cause of our individual problems as living souls and as the source of all of humans' problems is we lacked a method that would get to the cause of our problems. We have the name for the method, it's philosophical midwifery. We have the name for the cause, Pathologos. So we've finished the series, all done. Thank you for joining me. That's the end of the book. We don't have to read the rest. Oh no, I'm just kidding. Come on, the joke wasn't that bad. It was actually very funny. Okay, so we don't know it, but we have the key definitions, at least, of the key aspects of what we are looking for. The name, philosophical midwifery. The cause is a false belief, and it's called that because the beliefs are sick beliefs or false. So pathos means sick, logos means, well, to know the meaning of logos is a quest that I've been on for a long time, and we are on together. But we could say it's a belief, it's language, it's understanding, it's a system, all of those things, but it's a sick. Included within logos is belief. A sick belief, pathologos. Thus, a pathologos is a false belief. One that has been learned. This is key, but not taught. Why is that significant? That you learned it, you weren't taught it. Keep that as a question. It is a belief that has been accepted as true about oneself. So this is the class of belief we're after. It's a belief about ourselves and reality. One's reality. You are living in a kind of reality that you think, but it's not the case. It's a pathologos that you learned, but you weren't taught. What does that mean? Since it is irreconcilable with the attainment of one's highest goals. You can't have your goals, your highest goals, and this sick belief about yourself and reality. You can't have it. We say to that, no.
Have you read Brand?
No.
But hey,
That's one for the blooper reel.
That's one for the blooper reel. We say boo. And
That's one for the blooper reel.
that's one for the blooper reel. This one, Pathologos. It's irreconcilable, and it's the cause. I'll just use a different color. It's also the cause of much of the chaos experienced in our lives. You've got chaos, or much of it is caused by simply a false belief about yourself and reality that you've accepted as true, but isn't, that you learned. Wow.
Wow.
Philosophical midwifery is the method what is it? It's the method for discovering the nature. Okay, we're going to discover a lot of things. Discovering what? The nature, the origin, 1, 2, maintenance, 3, transmission, 4, and the dissolution of the pathologos. That is a neat definition, so let's write it down. Philosophical midwifery is the method for discovering. We have to discover it. We don't know it. We have to discover it. Now, those who do dream analysis will recognize that when people do dream analysis, they usually start with, oh yeah, I know what this dream was about. And after the dream analysis, it turns out that what they thought the dream was about was not only wrong, it was an expression of the very problem the dream was pointing to. So, in other words, we don't know. You've got to be okay with not knowing. In fact, use that not knowing as power, inspiration, motivation to carry ourselves in a certain way on a quest for discovery. For discovery of what? What are we? What? For discovery of what are we discovering? Oh, what are we discovering? Discovering, no, not discovering of. Discovering the nature. The nature, the origin. So what is the nature of your pathologos? Origin. Origin. Maintenance. So what's the nature of your problem, your pathologos? Where does your pathologos come from? What maintains? So that's also to do with our goals. You don't just get a goal, you have to maintain it. If you don't maintain your goal, that's a way of losing your goal. So too, there's something within our psyche, our soul, that maintains our pathologos. We also, newsflash, you better be in this game, because whether you like it or not, you are going to be transmitting. Transmission. No. Transmission. Transmission of your pathologos. You're sharing it. You're passing it on. I often call it, it's sometimes called a family curse in Homer. mythology. That's usually who you have most access to. Transmitting it within the family. And also the dissolution. Hooray. I said hooray. Of the Pathologos. This Pathologos. What is philosophical midwifery? It's a method for what? For discovery. What do you discover? The nature of your pathologos, the origin of your pathologos, what maintains your pathologos, what transmits the pathologos, and ultimately what dissolves the pathologos. Now, we're also keeping in mind that we're in the age of dialogue. What's the model of dialogue? Dialectic. Can we see within this 4 stages? Nature. Is the nature... Is this within the text and also within the author's thinking? Is the nature definition? To define the nature of something, is that definition? The origin, is that a demonstration? Is that how it first demonstrated itself in the origin scene? Are there divisions in other areas of your life and aspects of your psyche that maintain it? What's the 4th category? How do you, the conclusion, or how do you relate back to what you've defined? You transmit it. So do we have the 4 categories of the dialectic in its nature, definition, its origin scene, how it first demonstrates itself, how you first learned it, the divisions in your life that maintain it, and what happens if you have it? How do you relate back to it to begin? Well, you believe it and you transmit it as true. You pass it on. So it's a stagnant ousia. Now, normally at the end of the dialectic, you go back to the start at a higher level of understanding and you keep leveling up and improving. That's the dialectic used to climb the ladder of the logos. But we say that there's a shadow of the ladder that is stagnant. In other words, you have it, you get it, you learn it, you maintain it, and then you pass it on, but it hasn't changed when you get back to the start. So when you get back to the start, you're not up here, you're down here again. You haven't grown. You just pass it on and the next person inherits it. So you don't spiral up, you stay stuck in a problem. And what we said it was a problem, this is irreconcilable with this. In other words, the same way of saying that is this, the shadow that's stuck on the ground, is irreconcilable with climbing the ladder. And one way of understanding it is this dialectic here. You have its definition, its nature, how you get it, and its origin, how it maintains it, all the other aspects that maintain it, and how you relate back to it. You pass it on, you transmit it. So we have within this, within our understanding and within the text, we can see the dialectic here. Maybe. Hey.
But hey, that's just a theory.
It's a theory, but can we say definition? And that's how we read, by the way. Look for the dialectic wherever and whenever we can. So those who have been reading along, we've probably missed a whole bunch of sections where you could pull it apart and say, hey, can we see the dialectic in that first chapter, in that first paragraph? So synthesis, analysis, or the conclusion. Let's try it. Let's just use the first paragraph. Can we see the first part? Is this part here? Is this definition? It is entirely possible to verify that we are part of a caring and intelligible universe. Are we defining what our goal is in the text? So how do we demonstrate this? It's a kind of proof that's based on understanding. That's a way of understanding based on realization that the mind constantly communicates for us and our benefit. Is that how we demonstrate what we just defined? Fits? Okay, so how do we divide up that mind constantly communicating? So we can say self to itself. What are we after? That's definition. What are we doing? We are going to verify for ourselves we're part of a caring and intelligible universe. How do we do it? Self to an other. What's the other? Understanding of the mind. No, communicating. So we have to have an understanding based on a realization of the mind. So the other is mind. How does that other divide up into other others? That's division. Here we go. There's a list. So often when we're looking for division, we're looking for a list. So the next sentence is, the communications are as profound as utterly appropriate. So I actually think that's more of a way of a description of its functioning. It's profound and it's appropriate. It's pervasive and it's directed to what's personally significant. So that sounds like the definition there, the demonstration there. That's how it does it. So maybe the first two sentences were definition. Now, if we're looking for a division, we're looking for a list. Goals, problems we face, daydreams, fantasies, dreams. That sounds like a list. So is that division? And then can we take those divisions and come to a conclusion from that division? What we discover through those insights. Okay, so what unifies all of those divisions? They all are sources of insights. So that's a synthesis, the first step of conclusion. And so what do we do with those insights? We have to do analysis. What's analysis? Applying it back to the start. So what does the insights do? The insights show that the mind, that's what we were after at the beginning, provides ample evidence of its own goodness and intelligibility. So we are part of a caring and intelligible universe that is providing its own evidence of its goodness and intelligibility. So it's doing this. So it's not only what we had at the start, caring and intelligible, but it's also, after having gone through this paragraph, we come back to the start and we realize what we started with our definition, that the universe we are a part of is caring and intelligible. We can add to it after having gone through the journey. And what do we come back with? Not only is it caring and intelligible, it also provides ample evidence for us to realize it too. So what we started with is a definition of the reality of the universe that we're in, caring and intelligible. But we finish with an even better definition of the universe we're in, caring and intelligible, and provides ample evidence for us to realize it. We're not disconnected from that. That's a better definition. In other words, after having gone through the dialectic, we've followed the reasoning, and we come back to the beginning. But when we're back at the beginning, we're at a higher level. So we are spiraling up. We could do it in the first paragraph. So good thing we went back to do it. Isn't that cool? So I'm wondering if we could do it at every paragraph, or maybe for the whole first chapter. I encourage you to do that, or listener or reader. The same thing we just did on this opening paragraph. Do it for the whole first chapter. And look at the insights we got. And not only do we gain new insights, by seeing the structure, we can remember it a lot more easily. And we can have this, what are we in? The age of dialogue. We can have this dialogue with our friends over coffee because we understand the 4 steps he took in this paragraph. We started by saying this is the one of the best paragraphs ever written down ever in human history. But now we know that there are just 4 parts that follow an ordered structure so that we can remember it easily and say it to our friends over coffee. Isn't that cool? Making you more intelligible. Oh, and if you say it to your friends over coffee, you're being good to them and benefiting them and caring for them. So the more we do this, we are, through likeness, becoming like that very reality and intelligibility that we are learning about. You, if you do this, memorize this and use it, you are becoming intelligible and caring. So, this activity we just went through, looking for let's use a different color, looking for a definition, looking for the way it functions, looking for the divisions that support it, and then from those divisions, can you come to a single conclusion? For us, it was insight. And then can you take that insight back to the start? That's the second part of conclusion, synthesis and analysis. Analysis means take it back to the original definition. We went through a puzzlement and an activity, and we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know if it was going to work. I just said, oh, let's try the dialectic on the first paragraph and see what happens. We didn't know, but we were okay with not knowing. We were okay with wondering. We're okay with being wrong. That's fine. That's great. You learn that you don't have to waste your time doing it if you're wrong. Especially significant seeing as the Pathologos is wrong. So we did that. We went on a journey of unknowingness and we came back to the start better off. Having had a question, having had a not knowingness. Now, how does that experience that we just went through help us with our puzzle that we just read? How is it that can that thing that we just went through help us in answering the question, how is it that the problems we have, we should have, and our solutions are in our highest interest? A not knowingness, forcing us going through an activity of the dialectic, having a problem that forces us to go through this, and having gone through it, we ended up better off. Does that help us figure out why the problems we have, we should have? And if we go through an activity, maybe of the dialectic, called midwifery, then we come to a solution that's in our interest. It seemed to make us more intelligible and caring, like the universe we were applying our reasoning to. In seeing it, do we have a freedom from whatever false beliefs we had about the universe being not caring, mean, or stupid, inaccessible to us through reason and understanding and insight, intelligibility, unintelligible? And does it allow us to function with our friend using what we just understood on a higher and more personally significant level? Are we functioning in a higher, caring and intelligible way? Are we able to function in a higher way, but also direct it to our friend over coffee in a way that's going to be personally significant for him and for us? In other words, what we just went through with this opening paragraph, not just pulling out the terms and the order, but applying the dialectic. This was the activity you could say these are the kinds of definitions we had to pull out, and this was our demonstration. This was the activity we had to do. And the reflection on it, you could say, is the division. And then the conclusion we got from the reflection could be our conclusion or synthesis analysis. Did this activity we just went through, could that be a demonstration of something that might shed light on the puzzle in the very next paragraph? Why do we have the problems we have? And why, after having gone through a kind of defining of its elements and a structuring of it into the dialectic, how can that actually benefit us, bring us back to somewhere higher than we started, that we wouldn't have made that journey if we hadn't had a problem in the first place? Therefore, if we don't have a problems, would that mean the universe is less caring and intelligible because it doesn't provide the conditions for this activity that takes us back to a higher leveled up way of functioning ourselves? And if it wasn't intelligible, if it didn't have this method and model and structure that we as human beings can play with, then if it didn't have that, then it would also be less caring and intelligible. It would be a mean, nasty, stupid universe. But the fact that it does happen this way, by the way, you can mythologize these two elements as Apollo, the parts that we pull out, and Aphrodite. Applying it to a structure that can allow you to see it as a whole and gain you insights through your own experience. And in philosophy, we have Apollo and Aphrodite as at the bottom of a triad, and if you have them together, it goes to Hermes. And by the way, Hermes represents the dialectic. So that's a little tidbit for no extra cost. So how does that apply to what we just went through? There's a question for you. Apollo, Aphrodite, and Hermes. Pulling out the key terms, ordering it the correct way, doing an activity of the dialectic. Does that help us with our question for why we need to have the problems we have, and when we go through the activity of solving them, we end up better and can function in a better way and also more free? Does it help us? Maybe. If so, do it all the time. Every sentence, do it. Every chapter, do it. Every paragraph, do it. And if I did it for you, I would be ruining it for you. I'd be taking away the exercise. That would stink. So, does that first paragraph give us what we need to get an insight into the second one? That's pretty cool.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh, and in doing all that, did we not only get an insight into our own problem, but can we apply that to the universe we're in itself? Can we also, from what we just went through, gain an insight into the functioning of the nature of reality as beneficial and intelligible? The reality that we have to exist in for us to do what we just did, which was cool and awesome. Would that have to make the reality that we're in to create the conditions for it also cool and awesome? Now, cool and awesome is a slang for beneficial and intelligible. Everyone knows that. All right, so now we have a definition of philosophical midwifery and the pathologos and the key terms, which is a dialectic. But also we have another puzzle. We have 5 terms here. But there are only 4 terms in the dialectic. So what? So, can we give birth to a question? The nature, origin, maintenance, and transmission, these are all when you have the pathologos. But this fifth term is dissolution. It's the removal of all of that. So, can we come up with a puzzle? Can you? Leave them in comments or share them in Discord if you like. Can we have a question? Is there a secret hidden fifth section of the dialectic? Is there something extra that happens when you have the dialectic as a whole? So if this is the whole of the dialectic, is there a greater whole above the dialectic? So it's not a secret hidden part, it's actually a greater whole. Can we use other things that we've seen in philosophy to understand how there might be a triad? Well, no, we've got a quadrad. And then with over that, we have a monad above that. What does the dissolution have to do? Because dissolution doesn't fit. So the conclusion of having the pathologos is you transmit it. So you stay in the thing, but the dissolution is the opposite. So can you come up with any questions about this? Our author is giving us a puzzle if we are playing the game. Come up with one, come up with your own, carry it with you. We have our picture of our guy, who we are. Yes. Put it in your question sack and take it with you. So look, and we have a quadrad and maybe a five rad already. So these are our skill trees. We look for patterns of fours, we look for fives, and maybe we've got a new branch here and a new branch here, maybe. Take it as a question.
But hey, that's just a theory.
So we came to an insight. We came to an insight about the text. We came to an insight about the dialectic. We came to an insight about our own problems, maybe. And we came to an insight about the universe. And maybe more importantly than all that, maybe we come up with some new questions of our own. And we're only a couple of paragraphs in, so we're doing all right. So I have been paused for a while. So let's do a little review of what we covered. We talked about the essential factor in the functioning of the pathologos is you know what? I'll keep going. So it's psychic in the sense that it creates and sustains delusions. So it's a parasite in that it robs us of our vitality, and it's psychic. So there's our psychic and parasite, and that it creates and sustains delusions. And it functions like a carrier of disease because it passes on the conditions of existence. So, you know what? I'll do a quick review of what I missed because the recording was stopped. An essential factor in the functioning of the pathologos is a curious fact that its presence is unsuspected. We don't know we have it. And even though it's accepted as being unquestionably true. When we fully surface and see it for what it is, the pathologos, it can be likened to a psychic parasite that infects us by transmitting to the host, us, our psyche, ourselves, delusions that disguise its presence. So it creates delusions that prevent us from seeing it for what it is, And also, it defends itself by undermining whatever seeks to disclose its presence. We've already been talking about what is the cause of human problems in society. Why, if we look at understanding as a continuum, where you can understand magnets down at the bottom, you can understand how to do this and that, and make nuclear weapons, and so forth and so forth. Why are we able to understand some things, like we can understand how to make nuclear weapons, but why are we blocked from understanding ourselves, understanding the cause of our problems, understanding the mind, understanding reality, all of these higher things? Why can we have this technological development, but we are irrational and immature over here? We also have the, so that applies to society. That's the big question we talked about in chapter 1. And also for ourselves, as we progress to more meaningful goals, which is why we have to be in philosophy, because philosophy is the most meaningful ones. It's about self, logos, reality. Well, logos, reality, self, you'd put it this way, I guess. Because these are the ones that might that's going to really surface the nature of your problem as a whole. So, understanding. So what's the cause of our problems collectively? We are applying understanding to a certain point and no further. And these things, the nature of problems, the nature of mind, the nature of reality, the nature of the divine, the nature of the self, we are immature and irrational about. So we keep doing stupid things. We're really good at making banks and weapons, but why do we keep using it to maintain capitalism and exploitation and destroy the planet? It seems stupid to destroy the planet we're on. It seems stupid to torture and abuse 99% of the population for the 10th yacht of the 0.1% of the population. That seems really immature thing to do. If you were a kindergarten teacher and there was one student who got to play with all of the toys and eat all of the lunch, and the other 30 kids in the class didn't eat anything and couldn't play with anything and were suffering, you would be fired on the spot. That you'd be a very juvenile teacher and you'd be acting very irrationally. Why then are we not? Why are we doing the exact same thing collectively to ourselves, our species, and our planet? Well, we talked about the cause is this. At what point do you block the logos? Do you block the understanding? At what point do you say here and no further? And why is it that, you have simple people like the meme, the insane clown posse, you can't understand how magnets work, and we make fun of them because that's very silly. And then you have some people who understand more about, physics and stuff, but even that's too much for some really simple folk or really prejudiced, small-minded people. Physics, whoa, that's too complicated for me. I just use my gut and my common sense. Okay, that's never going to get you a job as an electrician, but that's the kind of thing that that way of being is what is targeted by fascists and right-wingers and stuff and conservatives who say common sense is better than all this reason, and they're the ones that burn the books and stuff because these are the ones more easily to manipulate because they're afraid and more easily tricked because they're not thinking for themselves. Their understanding comes in quicker. Their block to understanding comes in quicker. Then you have like people who are otherwise smarter and understand chemistry or physics or have a job or whatever. But why is it we can't apply it to problems, to logos, to reality and universe, and to self? So, what's the cause of problems? We fail to use understanding to what's most meaningful, ourselves, making us immature and irrational. What's the cause of that? Well, we have a psychic parasite which undermines What seeks to disclose its presence or threaten its existence? What are we learning threatens the existence of the Pathologos? Understanding. Specifically understanding following a certain model and method that we're learning here. So if there was a psychic parasite that undermined things that threatened its existence, what would it be undermining? Understanding. How would it be doing that? Here and no further. So, after we've identified the biggest puzzle about ourselves and humanity, we recognize it in the text. It says it's not the problem. The problem isn't understanding. It's our failure to use it. And all of the cultural things. Understanding isn't good enough. How can you understand God? How can you understand the meaning of life? You can't understand problems. We have problems because we're sinners. We have problems because my priest told me that I was evil because I was a woman. We have problems because we are nothing compared to God. All that crap. These are all ways of saying don't ask questions up till this point. Don't use understanding. So why? And hey, spiritual traditions aren't immune. Where do Hindus say you can't understand? Where do Buddhists say you can't understand? Where do Taoists say you can't understand? Now, we want to take it off this. We want to understand all of it. If the universe we're in is intelligible, means that we can understand all of it. We can have a party up here. But at what point does it come in? Now, this is why we also have to be in philosophy, because you won't surface the root. Like, you might be able to address some of your pathologos here, but it might require you to be seeking the nature of dialectic here, seeking the nature of reality here, seeking the nature of the self here, for you to see, oh, my block comes in here. So you have to be having the most personally significant goals in order to surface where this block comes up. So if that's the cause of our problems, we have a block somewhere along the continuum for the use of understanding, and therefore we undermine understanding. It's not good enough for whatever reason. We could ask the question, why do that? Why do we accept we understand magnets, understand Wi-Fi, understand computers, understand nuclear weapons? But why not hear this? Well, that's the next question. Why? What's the cause? The cause is a psychic parasite called the Pathologos that undermines the things that threaten its existence. And what threatens its existence? This. There you go. Is that cool that we can understand it so simply and obviously? With a little chart, which only has like really two pieces. This purple piece and this red piece. Is that cool? And it's all inclusive. You can understand the insane clown posse who don't understand magnets. You can understand common sense folk who don't like them science thinking and they like to burn the books. You can understand like people who get into physics but don't wonder about reality. Get the people who think that there is a reality but it's not understandable. And you get like the Buddhists and the Taoists who think you can understand up until a point, but you can't understand reality, you can't understand the self, you can't understand the meaning. So everything, and Platonism up here, but maybe lacks the understanding of the Pathologos. And now when we add that, we have a complete system of understanding, a synoptic vision, as it was called in the first chapter. Is that cool? The answer is yes. Very cool. All right, so it's like a parasite because it drains us of our vitality and subverts us from our highest goals. Hey guys, don't do this stuff. Just stay down here, mate. Hey man. You don't have the energy. Oh my God, you want to do philosophy? Oh my God, it's so much energy. Oh my God, just watch TV. Just stay down here, buddy. And it's psychic because it creates delusions and functions like a... So, creates delusions. So all of the things that says you can't do philosophy, you can't read the Balboa translation with Jed on this channel, it's not true. It's a delusion. Jed's lovely and he wants to include you and he has a Discord. And you can chat live if you want on YouTube or Twitch. It's not true. It's a delusion. Also, it's like a carrier of disease because... So it functions like a carrier of disease because... Let's move this down a bit. I select all of it at once. Anyway. Because it passes on the conditions for its existence to the members of the family clan. So this is the transmission stage. Passes it on to the family clan, the family curse. So it's a psychic parasite, and literally like a parasite in that it drains you of energy like a parasite does, but also it's contagious. You pass it on. Isn't that cool? I mean, it's not cool, but it's cool that we can understand it. Let's highlight that. Passes on. So it's a functions like a carrier of disease because it passes on the conditions of existence to members of the family or clan. Now, look at that. It doesn't pass on the pathologos itself. It passes on the conditions. Why? Because it is learnt and not taught. Which was... here. The top here. Learned but not taught. So you can't make someone come to the false conclusion about self and reality. All you can do is create the conditions for it to happen. Isn't that interesting? But don't. It's negative. It's unjust. It's going to hurt your soul and hurt others. It's a psychic parasite. Even if you think it's the best. Oh, my team is number one. Don't do it. Don't do it. Because you're not number one. That false belief is not number one. You have a higher level of existence and functioning and purpose. Let us begin then and say that philosophical midwifery identifies and describes the nature. Okay, so now we just defined earlier, we defined what pathologos is here and what midwifery is here. Then we went on to its demonstration of pathologos. Now I guess we're on to the functioning or demonstration of midwifery. So we can see there is an order to the thinking of our author that we want to match ourselves if we seek to become masters of this greatest art that will rival anything we see around us. Here we go. So philosophical midwifery, what does it do? It identifies and describes the nature of a newly identified class of human problems. Wow. Wow. What is it? The pathologos. To make this clear, we will explore the pathologos along with the following 11 dimensions. Okay? A newly identified class. So, we can say, for some reason, and reasons we can infer from reading that first chapter, this problem of human development, where we do this, and then everyone has a pathologos that comes in at some point, this author, Dr. Grimes, was able to and recognize this guy, which is this guy here. the Pathologos itself. He was able to, and we know why, we can infer why from all his work that he's done and the meditation and various things that he's done, and the understanding himself, overcoming his own blocks and so forth. He was able to go, oh, there's a thing here that's stopping everything, stopping our development up to this point. So there's a new class that goes all the way along. You need to see the whole of it to identify this new class of problems. It's called Pathologos. And Midwifery identifies and describes the nature of Pathologos. So we already said that Midwifery is a method for discovering the origin. But now we're saying it also identifies and describes the nature. Oh no, we've already said that. We're expanding. It's a method for discovering, but also we can say it also identifies and describes that stuff too. Woof. Did he spell identifies? No. Identifies and describes those things. So that's what midwifery is. To make this clear, we'll explore the Pathologos along with the following 11 dimensions. The nature of the Pathologos, number 1. The condition. Let's highlight some stuff. Mouse is being funny today. The nature of the Pathologos. The condition and transmission of the Pathologos. Amnesia. You forget stuff. I wonder what we're going to forget. I wonder if we'd already figured out what we're going to forget and we've forgotten it. No, we haven't read that far ahead yet.
Have you read Brad?
That's one for the blooper reel.
The wordless transmission is transmitted without the logos. That's curious. So the logos is obviously the understanding, the method that we are learning for understanding removing problems, but maybe we don't need the logos to pass on the problem. So therefore, all of us who haven't yet mastered the art of the logos can pass on a problem, but the logos is needed to remove it, curiously. So without the logos, we have the condition for the pathologos, but we are forced to learn the logos if we want to remove our problems. What a curious world we find ourselves in. Blame and anger. Oh, you better stay with me until we get to blame and anger, or I'll be so mad at you. And you better understand it well. And share your insights with me on the chat and in Discord, or I'll get you. Right? The struggle over discussing the pathologos. What? So we have a struggle over discussing it. What's that struggle going to be? Can you imagine? Why would it be difficult to discuss the cause of your problem? The psychic parasite, maybe? Cultural beliefs that if you got a problem, you're bad and you deserve punishment? And all the people who are waiting in the wings to play their own pathologos? Yes, finally, I can do my pathologos on that guy because he's an enemy now. You're a bad guy. Oh, I want to kill you. I want to murder you. I want to burn you alive. All your own disgusting, my disgusting pathologos I can do now because that's our society of oppression. Violence means to label someone as bad and they deserve punishment, which is another way of saying express my pathologos onto them, further damaging my own soul and removing the conditions for dialectic. Or juvenile, irrational, stupid behavior, as it says in the text. So, could these be problems preventing the discussion of the Pathologos? I know that it's challenging. I've engaged in midwifery for a long time, and I have seen the same thing. That same paradigm. Even doing midwifery, you get to a certain level of development, and their thing comes in. Here and no further, making it a struggle to keep the conversation alive. It's not a thing, it's a relationship. It's the age of dialogue. You're in a relationship. You don't figure it out all at once. So it can be difficult when the person you are reflecting with hits their block. It requires certain kinds of virtues and integrity and wonder and learning to be able to, oh, I've hit my block, but that's okay. I'm going to reflect on it. Or I'm going to put it aside to continue this midwifery right now, and so long as I promise to come back to it later. So these are difficulties that come up. Hopefully we get to address them. Because it's sad when you stop the conversation, when you give up. You're doing all this good work with someone into this game, and they say, nope, here and no further. And then all of their Pathologos comes up. The Psychic Paracite sticks its head above the water and says, no further. It's got little horns, and it's got mean. No, shakes its fist. No. So hopefully we discuss and understand how to avoid those problems. The Pathologos defended and condemned. What does that mean? We've gone from 6 to 9. We're operating through some higher non-Euclidean mathematical dimension right now. Or it was just a printing error. The Pathologos defended and condemned. What? Maybe that's what we were talking about a second ago. You got a Pathologos, I'm just going to condemn you for it. You're going to condemn me? Well, then you're forcing me into the role of defending myself. So now I have to defend why I had a problem. It's not because I am rubbish and deserve to be abused. That's your problem, condemning. Now I'm no longer reflecting on its causes and freeing myself from that parasite. I'm defending myself, which is all bullshit. Irrational and juvenile, as we say. Immature. Inner dialogues and dreams. How do they relate to the Pathologos? Meaning and the Pathologos. How does this all relate to meaning? What's the significance of meaning? What does meaning mean? I don't know what that is. I think it's a good question to ask. I asked Pierre this once, and he said, if you don't know what this is, I'm not going to talk to you. And I got very sad because that was ending the conversation. Yeah. I'm really happy that I got to talk to the man a lot, but there were a few moments like that where I got sad because I think that's a good question. What makes something meaningful? What is meaning itself? And I don't think it's bad to ask that question. I think it's good. But of course, I mean, you could ask the question, if this is a time when he's saying here and no further, could that be where his Pathologos came in? I don't know. Maybe he's operating through time because he didn't want me to ask him that question. He wants me to keep it as a puzzle. I don't know. But I felt sad. But I don't think it's a bad question. In fact, it's in the book, so it's a good question. What is meaning? We're going to read about it at number 9. And we are going to not do that. We are going to do the other. We're going to encourage and keep the wonder going and encourage curiosity and questions and stuff. No shutting down the logos. No. Now, there's lots of grace we can give. It was, in the age of internet, and he was a 99-year-old man or something, or a 98 or 99-year-old man. So using the internet, a hearing aid, I have a funny accent. I'm not from the same country. There are lots of conditions. So, I'm not having a go at the guy. Lots of difficulties involved. So, in other words, I'm not condemning him for doing it. And I'm not wanting him to therefore want to defend why he did it. Or me even defend him. Hey, it's because he was actually giving me a secret spiritual teaching. Blah, 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 blah. That I would only realize 40 years into the future. Well, I felt sad now. And I still think that keeping the conversation alive is a principle. So, but that's this thing. We don't have to do that. Not condemning and defending. We're just, hey, it's a relationship. He's not supposed to be perfect either. We pick up the relationship again. We pick up the conversation again. I'll ask him another way about meaning. Or when we're reading a Platonic text, meaning comes up. Or reading this book, meaning's come up. Maybe I can ask it now. Hey, Pierre, what does meaning mean? And he passed away this year, about a month or so ago. Again, another thing that made me sad. But he is still alive in this text. And from what we learn in philosophy, his soul is still existing in another dimension. And now, is he going to reincarnate back, or has he done his work here? Don't know yet, but it's a good question to keep alive. A question that we ask in the Phaedo, which we have a series for on YouTube. Nevertheless, I wasn't able to answer the question at the time, but we can answer it now because he is talking to us through time in this text. Let's keep going. The Logos. Big one, the Logos. Let's highlight that in different color. Whoops. What is the Logos? Because we've been talking about the Pathologos, right? Excuse me. And that's a question that even in this talk, we said, what is the Logos? Because we said it was passed on without language, the wordless transmission. And we said, that's a part of the Logos. And I said, what's the Logos? And I said, well, I've had that question for many, many years. And we are on the quest to discover and master the Logos on this channel. So I don't have a definition for it. I have a working definition that I've been building for a very long time. And I hope you are on this quest too, to discover the Logos. It's of all of the things in this continuum of things you can understand, the Logos might be right up at the end. There's a question in the first hypothesis of Parmenides. How does the self, the one self, which is normally considered the end of the ultimate level of understanding, how does that relate to the Logos? That's a significant puzzle in the first hypothesis of Parmenides, which is online on YouTube if you want to follow along with that. Because he says it's you can't apply the Logos to it. But the first hypothesis has been a whole Logos. And we're doing it because we are doing a dialectic on the self. And the maxim that they lived by was to know the self. So that's a big puzzle. Now, there are people who take that conclusion on face value, and when he says there is no Logos of the self, they say, therefore you can't understand the self, so don't ask the question. So that's a way that they use to move their block back before the self, but that's not reading. He's not saying that there's no Logos. He's saying that there's a new way of understanding Logos that you will only see if you read the text the way that we did on our series that's free on YouTube. Check it out. First hypothesis of Parmenides. All right, so that's a big one, the Logos. That's a biggie. Signs of a Pathologos problem. If you don't know you have a Pathologos, how do you figure out you've got? How do you find it? You have to find the signs of a Pathologos problem. You have to put on your Sherlock Holmes cap. All right, so those are the four things we are going to explore now. So I thought maybe there would be different paragraphs. So all of these good questions we have down here, I thought, oh man, we're going to have to wait a long time to get into them. But as I scroll down in this chapter 2, I see the nature of the Pathologos is right here. So we don't have to wait long. So we can get right into it and answer all of those questions that I raised, and personal connections and all that stuff, all these puzzles and questions and wonder. We can answer right now because it's just here. We don't have to wait until chapter 9 or whatever. So, what does he have to say about it? On that cliffhanger, let's end the stream for today. Good place to end on. Very exciting. Can't wait to jump back into it next time. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me on the live streams. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow on Discord if you want notifications when we go live and you want to share your reflections and discuss the Pathologos with others. There should be a link to Discord below. You can support on Patreon. There should be a donate link somewhere if you have the means to support. And I hope you're wondering. I hope you're curious. And I hope to keep the conversation alive. Keep the questions alive. Meet you next time with those questions, with that wonder, with the desire to keep the conversation alive next time. I hope to see you then. Thank you so much.